We are live from the
Kitchen
from the kitchen of Ivan&Sara
in Zagreb, Croatia.
with this whole coronavirus, enjoying to stay inside. Anyways, it's been a long time that we don't do a vlog, and we're doing it live. So there is no editing, there is nothing. It will go as raw as it gets. Yeah, so we apologize in advance. So
Hope everybody's good,
yeah,
taking care of yourselves, strengthening your immune system, staying indoors.
and for the reason you have to stay inside and be with your family, etc., etc. So anyway, what we should tell them, Sarah? Should we start talking about the topic, or we should give them a little bit of an idea of?
I don't know. This is your lead, so.
Oh, this is my lead interest, mostly with Argentine tango, obviously, and it's been really interesting. Depend who you talk to on how you have learned and your experience, etc., and what it means to lead and follow. Yeah, so and that's something that I think is really interesting. It could be a little contradictory for some people on how they think about it, but anyway, we just wanted to give you an idea about how we think about it without, have to talk about anybody else ideas. But the first idea of lead and follow, there are again many different ideas. For example, we heard of there is an idea of the suggestions. Suggestions, they could be like really big in a way. And there is an idea that if you both hear the music the same, say Sarah and I, we somehow magically we hear the music the same, we can understand each other through music, which it can happen and it is possible for some people, right? But that means that, I will have to work with her for a long time. She's my partner. That's the only person I dance with all the time. And then over time, while we dance and we dance, she will understand how I hear the music, right? Obviously, she could say it's like how I hear the music are. Like, and we hear more the under beats, for that's my training from folklore. And Sarah will hear more of like the general music. That's our difference, let's say, with music. So if we understand that, she can kind of understand how I hear the music, and then she can follow me because she can kind of anticipate what I'm going to do with the music. Yes, let's say that's an idea, right? That you hear the music similarly, and because of it, you can more or less tell what the other person wants, right? Do you agree?
Mm-hmm.
What's the other idea? An idea, Sarah? And Sarah's just going to enjoy here to be here. She's been really lazy.
Another idea is that we kind of have to know each other's conventions. So what does that mean? That we both take tango classes and we know what certain things mean in tango. So we have an agreement on vocabulary and structure. And because we have an agreement on vocabulary and structure, we kind of know how to execute these movements simultaneously. So the leading and following then is sort of knowing the same language. And because we know the same language, we are able to dance it together. So let's say, for me, this is probably the closest to like a ballroom type understanding, although people who prescribe to this way of leading and following, they wouldn't say it's like ballroom, but to me it is a lot like ballroom.
Yeah. Well, I said the experience that we have.
Yeah, because in a way, what you know that let's say just something like the basic, you know how the basic goes, that it has like a side step or a back step, and then you have a certain number of steps, and then there's a cross, and you have a resolution. And once the leader initiates this, because the follower knows what this is, the follower continues to do it with the leader, and they do it simultaneously. And then on top of that, if you know the music or you have the same music education, it's even better, because then you can kind of step at the same time. And so that's another way. So this is like sort of code or structural understanding. We know what the step is, therefore we do it together.
which is it is interesting. And again, all of these ways that we're talking about, we know from other people that use it, and also we have tried. But then we'll tell you for our understanding of how we started Tango, it became really hard. We tried to do it, but it didn't work for us. This one that Sarah is mentioning is actually a really common one, and it happens a lot. And we're not saying that. I mean, we have tried again, like I said before. Um, but the problem for us, it become a little bit limited for our idea, because that means that every time, let's say we pick a step, let's say I do side step, transfer away, back step, and it's a common step that many people uses. If I decided to change that, to change the size of the step, or the timing of it, or anything on it, and then happening that more and more people are so kind of automatic on that idea, that if you want to modify it, is wrong for them, and it seems like you're leading something wrong. That is like, yo, you dance really weird, or this is really strange. Why are you doing that? Or it must be a mistake, because uh, I don't know. The definition of dancing for many people is different, right? And again, that comes from their experience and stuff. So this becomes easier in a way and safer on many ways. That for some people help, other ones not. Again, on our experience, it doesn't help us for how we learn, and this is kind of what maybe we want to talk about.
Yeah. So if kind of you dance through code, for me, it becomes like more of an intellectual thing. Um, you have to think as a follower of what the leader is going to do. And it becomes sort of like a school-based thing. So if in your school the turn is square and it has 4 steps and you do them in a particular order, then that is the only possibility for every single thing. And then little by little through experience, you realize that's not the case.
Because it's, again, you go to a different school not too far from where you live, and then in their school they believe that the turn doesn't work like that, and it works slightly different. So the problem becomes like, oh, this is a common thing. I dance with this guy or with this girl or whatever, and after like the third song, we kind of understood each other. That's why we decided to do another tanda, and then it's like it ended up working out. Why does it have to take so long to be able to, in a way, connect or to understand to some other person? It takes that long sometimes because of these different ideas about the school. Oh, in my school, the ocho to the right side, let's say we use the left arm and we push, so then that's the turn to the right side of the man, right? And then on other school, when they use the arm to push, it means a bolero. And in other school, the pushing the arm, it means something in the music that they want to do, but it doesn't specify to what. And then again, with this, and then happen with everything, where I'm putting examples of Pac Ocho, but and then happening with many different things. So then, what the problem with all of this is that and then happening the ideas of like styles. And the problem that then we start to separate with the styles, then like, oh, me as an anime salon dancer, I don't know, I dance with that girl that dance kind of like modern. I don't know, I don't dance with people that dance modern. Or the people that dance more modern, they're like, oh, I don't like milonguero. Or the people that like milonguero, oh, I don't like. And then it becomes this whole thing is like, oh, the milonguero people only with the milonguero, the saloni only with the saloni, the modern with the modern, the stagey with the stagey, and name it, whatever style is there. And I think it goes a little bit against the whole idea of Argentine tango, at least when we learn it. That it was like one of the things that attract us the most, at least for me. I used to do many other different dances before, and I find Argentine tango one of the most challenging one for that same reason that whatever I was doing, I could try and do it with everybody, and we can understand each other with everybody with different schools, different ideas, all these different things, but on the underline of everything, we're all working the same. And
I mean, which is still true. I think most people can dance with each other. Simple things.
Yes.
Like basic things like ochos and a 3/4 turn, and maybe like some kind of a basic, like those things tend to work, because in reality, the way that they're created from the movement of the body is kind of the same.
Yes.
It doesn't have to be too complex. The cues are not too complex, or the codes are supported by the underlying body movement, meaning that the code on top is just sort of like following what the underlying body movement is doing. But the issue starts to happen when you want to change timings, or you want to do something more complex, or you want to change size of steps, or you want to open and close the embrace.
Meaning you want to modify anything
if you want
slightly.
If you want to modify something, then we start to have problems, because what we can't do is we can't communicate it to each other. And because the communication is something that has to be learned, instead of the communication being something that's instinctive or inherent, or that already exists in us as human beings who are just functioning in this world.
Yeah. So again, many of these ways, they're not completely wrong. We're not saying that one is better than the other one. It's just like in our experience for how we learn, we understood that things could be different.
So we want to give a big shout out to our teacher, Diego Di Falco. Diego, if you guys don't know who Diego Di Falco is,
you should search.
Look him up. He's an amazing dancer, and he was an amazing teacher, and we're really fortunate and lucky to have had him, because he kind of opened up this world of possibilities that said everything is leadable, everything can be followed. Your dance is completely improvised, and whatever you want to create, you can create through this communication. So this is super important. And if you have a chance to study with Diego, please do. We took a great benefit from him. So what we wanted to do in this video today is just kind of talk to you guys about how we lead and follow in more specific ways. I know we've addressed this topic before, but
we want to be more precise.
But we want to be more precise, because what we find kind of not working in the tango world today is that there are too many divisions. There are too many schools that don't dance with each other. There are too many kind of miscommunications. So we think we have a solution.
Mostly this is just like lately, I mean, this happens with everything, with massification in general. Now with tango, many people have found the idea of simplified tango, and simplify, and it's like, oh, if you do this, it's a little simpler, and it's cool because it's a little more approachable, so more people are dancing it. But that doesn't mean that this is.
But I don't think this has to do with simplification, Ivan. I think it has to do with a different idea about how communication works. So I don't think people want to simplify tango. I think the way that we conceptualize, we in the tango community in general, conceptualize communication is really different. And if we had a concept of communication that worked across all styles, because it's based on something that's natural and not based on a convention or a code, then we have a different possibility. So do you want to talk about how we lead and follow? So we want to talk to you guys about how we lead and follow. That's the purpose of this video.
But first we need to give you a general idea about other things which are not wrong. Then maybe we can even grab the computer and go to the studio and we can show you some things. But in general, the idea is that from the moment that you stand on one leg, the only rule is that as a follower, do not, for now, to start, you don't transfer your weight by yourself unless you're being led. Yes? And from that position, from you standing on one leg, you can go anywhere. And sometimes it's like, I understand it, that we all do this. Yes. But that doesn't mean that once that you are from one leg, your destination is point A, point B. The destination is not so important. What becomes more important is the path. If I'm standing on this leg and this leg needs to move to point B, so point A, point B, this is really easy for me to do from here to here. What happens in between? Oh, it doesn't matter. As soon as you land there on the same beat with me. That is too general. And if we know the step, we understand that, okay, we arrive together.
It's also problematic in the sense that any possibility of direction change or any shaping of the free leg, it happens in the landing into the axis B. So actually the path of the free leg from A to B is super important because that's what governs what the next movement is or what the next direction is or what the next shape of the movement is. So thinking of axis as being the point of reference or axis as being the place where things happen, it's half a step too late. You need to think about it in the moment from when one leg is stopping to become the standing leg and the next leg is starting to become the standing leg. Yeah, so this point of split weight or the moment of touch of the back leg for the follower, if she's moving backwards, is the key moment that many times is neglected and really needs to be thought about.
So in a way, we like to think about point A, point B, but more importantly, everything in between.
So once you can establish point B, that is kind of like
where
we're going, then the whole path from A through B to C is really, 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 really what matters.
So on the end, when a lot of people say, you need to feel her, you need to, what it means, it doesn't, for us, it doesn't mean like I have to feel her here on top. Yes, I feel her, it feels nice.
Of course,
is part of it, right? But that's not, the whole information is not here. It's not only on her upper body, on her arms. The idea is to try to understand, kind of like to scan her whole body and try to feel everything on her body. And more important, where is she moving from, which is from her standing leg, which a lot of people talk about. Standing leg, use the standing leg, do the standing leg. So I have to be able to feel her standing leg through my embrace, to how whatever is that you want to think about it for now, to be able to connect through her standing leg, because her standing leg is the ones that connects to her own free leg. And free leg, we say free leg because what it means to be free, that's another.
It just means it doesn't have weight.
Yes.
But it's not free in the sense that that disappears.
Or that is dead. Or is,
so any shaping of the movement of the follower has to be done through the sensation of where that free or weightless leg is in relationship to the weighted leg or the standing leg. And that's the feeling that's between the legs is actually the understanding of where the two legs are in relationship to each other. So anything that has to do with where the follower is moving, it has to do with how her legs are relating to each other. And so the leader really has to know where both of the followers' legs are,
at
not
all
just the standing
times. If you can feel, if you're really connected to her or to him, and you can feel their legs at all times where they are on space in relationship to each other, the amount of information that you have in the couple is just like amazing. The things that you can do, the things that you can shape. Sarah mentioned earlier, shaping the free leg. Literally, that you literally feel that you can grab her free leg and make any shape that you want.
Yeah, so this is it's not a physical thing. So you don't want to think about it like that you are
physically,
holding her axis and shaking the tree to move the branch. That's not the idea. That's not how it works. So the question is like, okay, so far we've been talking about the follower and all this stuff about the follower and what the leader needs to feel. But the really important question is, how do we create this? Because for us, if the leader can feel me in this way or is required to feel me in this way, it means also that I can feel him in this way. So the way that he is communicating to me what it is that I need to do with my body. Because in essence, once we go into the embrace, we're like one person with 4 legs. And the only difference between us is only in the general initiation of energy and direction. And that's what the leader does. So because Ivan is in our couple, he's the leader, he normally initiates where we move together as a couple. But because this channel of communication for us is so clear and so strong, the same way that he can communicate to me, I can communicate back to him. So it's a channel of communication which is 2-way, not just one way. So how does Ivan tell me stuff? The way that Ivan tells me stuff, what I need to do with my body is by he himself doing it with his body.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes, there's like people say, oh, Tango is not about mimicking. On a most basic level, like in the first sort of leading level, because there are different levels of leading. On the most basic leading level, it is just about mimicking. But mimicry gets us only somewhere. So by mimicking, we can't create separate, by only mimicking, we can't create separate directions, for example, for me and for him. And in more complex tango movement, including something like, leading the cross in a basic, you are creating different directions for the leader and the follower. So mimic is like the basic underlying natural instinctive way. So if Ivan rotates his upper body, there's no reason for me to pivot. Rotation of his upper body that's disengaged from the ground only means rotate your upper body. And we might need that sometimes, because what we want to do is we want to change relationships to each other.
To be able to, if we decide to stay frontal to each other as much as we can, so it looks more connected. That's why I say it looks more connected. Doesn't mean that you're not connected. That's another topic about connection. We choose to face each other.
So we have ways of walking that are not just in front of each other, they're in different sides of the embrace. So if every time I pivoted that he went to the side of me, then I would constantly change our angle. I would change the direction in which we travel. So we have to have a mechanism which separates how we move around the embrace versus when the legs move. So for us, the legs move when his legs move. The legs engage when his legs engage. The upper body rotates when the legs aren't engaging, meaning they're not engaging the floor. So already just by doing that, we have a possibility of moving around each other in different positions of the embrace. And we have the possibility of moving the legs. And those two things are separate.
Yes. Should we? Hey, Marco. Marco just got connected. Of course.
You're the one who made us do this topic, by the way.
Yes. Let's exactly what we had it about the idea of, now we're talking about the upper body and then the legs and all that without going too much into detail. Let's show them an example why we don't believe, and this will be controversial, but we're saying it. If we still think, what year we are?
2020.
2020. If you still think that the upper body leads, we are considering aliens. Okay, and I'm an alien. I'm okay with it. Yes?
Yeah, because it doesn't.
Because it doesn't. So we'll give you some examples that will make you question your...
So we'll show you, actually we'll go to our studio now and we'll show you our...
mess.
Not really mess. This is our coronavirus setup. So just to show you. So the first thing is, see Ivan. He has this dummy. So yeah, what's the dummy's name?
He's Bob.
Bob the dummy.
Poor guy.
Yeah, and I have my gyro machine. If you guys want to know what gyrotonic is, one day maybe I can do a video on gyrotonic and why it's awesome. And of course, Ivan has a ping pong setup. It's a little bit off center because of my gyrotonic machine, but here we go. And
let me see where we put it so people can see.
I think we should put it on this table. It's just going to be like super perfect.
Lower.
Yeah, look at that. I can see everything.
Handball.
Can you see us?
One second. Maybe a little farther. Yes.
Is that better?
Yes. Remove your little thingies.
Okay. Can you see us? Guys who are connected?
Yes.
Okay. Good.
Ooh, a demo. Yes. Okay. So, really common thing, right? If we really think that the upper body really leads, yes, 2020. Let me show you this side, you guys can see it. We can go to one of the most common steps in tango, the ocho cordado, right? Let's move a little bit here. There you go. So we have dun, 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 dun. Right, so you see how my upper body, in a way, is rotating in this direction. So we can say, yes, you see, it makes sense that the upper body is leading. Now, what happens if I create the same rotation? Yes? Are you looking at the left? See that the upper body is still doing the same thing. It's still rotating. So how is possible? How is possible that the upper body leads? If we think about it like that, some people will say, "Oh, maybe it's where your axis is." Okay, so maybe we're talking about the axis. So then maybe the upper body itself doesn't really do it. So then we are thinking about the axis. So people say, "Oh, maybe this arm, this other arm." If we go into this arm and this other arm, then it creates this problem of, oh, in my school, when I do it with this arm, it means this. And in my school, when I do this arm, it means the other thing. So then when I'm going into convention, so we don't want to go into the idea of convention because it's, again, then you will need 4 songs to understand each other just to do it only freaking ocho cordado, right? So we want to think about it in a more simple way, which we're not going to mention completely now. But look, another example. If the upper body really leads, let's explain this. Say I'm not really moving my upper body, but Sara is doing ochos when I'm doing sacada, which I see many people doing that. So again, how do we explain that? And like this, guys, there is a billion of examples that you can find where the upper body is actually not really doing anything. We can go into even more normal stuff like ochos, but mostly in a close embrace. Let's go. So, if you were in a close embrace, the whole idea of the close embrace, and one of the nicest things about the close embrace, is that you want to stay close. So from here, if you really think about what's really rotating, our lower bodies, we're not saying that the upper body does not rotate at all, but is not the one that initiates. If I move it as a follow through, as a consequence of something else that is happening. So again, let's really think about it. There's a lot of different elements, and again, there's a lot of other different steps that also you might see them. Looks like the upper body is doing something, but then really, really think about, this is kind of like to open a little bit the mind and start seeing things, just like start to really explore from the inside, try to really feel, is that really what's doing, and is that really happening everywhere? Because sometimes it ended happening when we were learning, it started happening, it's like we go to take to this class with this guy, and he said, oh, I do it from here. Okay, very good, really good students. We go and we train and we do it here. Then we try some other movement that didn't have that rotation there. So I'm like, so how is that happening? We go to another school, and then another school to say, oh, here, it's my hips that are doing this, and I'm like, okay. So then we try the hips, and then the hips, but there are some movements that are the biggest problem for us, and this is thanks to Sara, she's like really like on the sense that
what are you trying to say, Ron?
No, that if it doesn't make sense, was her thing. For me, I was just a good student. You tell me, and I do it, and I go for that, and I didn't care, blah blah. Sara was like, wait, this makes no sense. If you're saying that I lead with my arms, an example, right? then that means like you lead everything with the arms. And it's like, no, only this movement. Okay. So then when you do this other movement, how do you lead it? Oh, I lead it with my chest. Okay. And then if you lead this other movement, oh, I lead it with my hips. Oh, I lead it. And then it becomes, it's like, imagine trying to memorize all the different steps that there are in Tango, which there are a billion of them. If you really open your mind, there's a billion of them, not just a few steps that we use as a convention. If you really think about that, then it's like you can really see what's out there. And I want to stop there because if I keep going.
Ivan got really excited, guys.
Really excited. It's a really important topic because we have many conversations with friends, and thank God we stop some of those conversations on time, because sometimes with friends you shouldn't talk about tango technique. It doesn't really take you anywhere because egos and all of that, it's a tough thing. So we try not to do it. So anyway, all that we wanted to say is just like, start thinking about the idea of the leading and following is not to create any problem. We're not shitting on anybody. So also be kind to us. This is just an idea. We learn, thank God, from first day. For example, the idea of ganchos versus sacada. Can I give them that last example?
Ivan like took this topic and like ran with it. This was not.
For example, we understood from the beginning, regardless when you put your foot, if it's in the middle, towards the foot or towards the other one, it didn't completely dictate what's going to happen next.
I mean, obviously, if you want a gancho, you shouldn't put your foot to her foot.
Obviously.
Because it's not going to happen. It's structurally impossible.
What? If you move in that direction.
But if you put the foot towards the other leg or in the middle, this doesn't mean gancho necessarily.
No. And this happens a lot. So it's like, don't think that because, oh, there is space, you should kick in between. Yes, it is an idea, and it's not wrong if you give it as a suggestion. And the idea of being able to understand how we are understanding things to our first teacher and us keep working on many things, is that if you have the control to lead everything, you can also let go of that control and play with any suggestion and any ideas.
Yeah, so leading everything means not only creating the possibility of it happening, but generating the energy which is required for it to happen. So from our first teacher, we learned that like boleos, most of the time nowadays, at least when I dance with people, boleos are suggestions. They're sort of spaces that are given to me as a follower, and then I kind of kick into the space. This is also why it makes sense that there are so many follower technique classes where you sort of do your own movement by yourself and you practice your boleo and you make your boleo pretty and you make your boleo circular or however it is. That totally makes sense in the context of sort of social dancing today, meaning that it's just kind of like certain things are conventions which we follow together, so we move together, and then at some point the leader leaves a space and then we do something inside of that space. The way that we learned wasn't quite like that. The way that we learned is that Ivan's responsibility is to create also energy for my movement.
And again, the responsibility is for me to create. It's not to make her do it. It's a completely different thing. I'm not.
Well, in the beginning, you were kind of making me do it.
Yes, but how we're talking about it now.
Yeah.
Right?
So we learned. We've evolved since that point also a little bit.
So for example, sacadas versus ganchos. Me stepping in the middle, it doesn't mean that she's going to kick in between. It depends on the direction of where this is going to happen. Yes, is what I'm going to get. So I can get this in the middle, or I can get this in the middle. Yes? So it's not because I put my foot there, she knows it's coming, she does it. Yes, it can happen, but then always that happens. And then when always that happens, then it becomes a habit. It's not something that you're in control.
So in a way that in the way that we work, whatever it is that we do, it never is exactly the same. Like a gancho is never the same gancho. because of the way that you're combining energies with directions. It's really different every single time. A bolero is never the same bolero. It really depends on how you're combining these different factors that make a bolero. So for us, in terms of what is leading and following and how is it different from convention, in a convention, you sort of have a movement which is prescribed, it's set, it's standardized to some extent for the understanding of the school or the structure that you've learned within. But for us, there's no such structuring. And so basically, we have a set of principles of movement. And these principles of movement are natural principles that are governed by movement naturally, like how we move as people in this world. And the way that we combine these different principles, the principles of access, direction, and energy, that is not to say that we don't have movement habits.
Yes.
This is different. Bring that backside forward.
Yes.
Why? You know so many things. Why do that? So a little bit of a problem with the way that we do stuff is because it's so unstructured. Sometimes
having the freedom of to do anything at any moment from any place, however you want, however the music goes, however you want to shake her leg, the question becomes like, what do I do next? So now what? There are so many different things that you can do, is to actually try to find your mind to kind of like, okay, let's do this first, then that.
Yeah, that's really hard. The other thing that's also really hard is because we can kind of communicate also speed and distance to each other. Sometimes there's a tendency like, oh, we can go that fast. We just should. Let's just do it this fast. Or let's just squeeze this movement into a faster movement. Or let's syncopate something. And sometimes when it's better not to use the capacity fully. So we don't, we're still like learning a lot of that stuff. And I think with Tango Happily, we'll be learning for the rest of our lives, and that's what makes us really, really, excited about it. This is why we love this dance.
So earlier we were talking about the idea to kind of resume, but to start to then I can show them the example that I wanted about the idea why it's so important the understanding of from standing leg from point A to point B to actually understand the in between of the step, which is this way how we work. It helps us to understand that because that's how you can shape all the movements. So for example, the movement that Sarah hates, yes, which I love. Let's say if I only do this, you can stay down. It's nice. You're shorter that way. I look bigger. Very good. So that movement is like doing this movement. Back, side. Right? Literally, all that I'm trying to do is to do that. Back, side. But here, now, I'm not controlling what happens in between. If I control what's in between, that means that from the beginning, the path of her leg, I can feel how much she's going, I can sense how much is going. That means I can shape that movement however I want. So in this case, what I'm going to create that this hip opens at that point. So then I can create that this changes the angle. And that have nothing to do with the top. Because again, literally what we wanted to do is to keep this. Right? So if I can sense and feel where her movement is, where the leg is, you see the rotation is happening because of now we are not running from each other. If I stay here, I'm not facing her. So because she's on this side and I need to face her, that's why this is happening. So it happens by consequence. And that's how I can shape the movement. And I can still either finish it where I wanted it, or even though she seems like she's going to go there, it doesn't mean that that's what's going to end. So I can control her foot, whatever I wanted it, and we can go anywhere. Yes, so the point of that is that when we talk eventually about connection is not being connected from point A to B.
Or it's not just being in the embrace. Connection is a communication of the whole body that allows us to really move together, like really, really precisely. So Yeah. The other thing that I wanted to say is that sometimes it may seem like what we're talking about is very complex or it's really difficult, but it's actually really not. It's much, 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 much more simple than having to memorize or correct every single step separately, and then having to practice every single step separately. Working a lot with other professional dancers, because now we're working with the professionals with choreographies and other kinds of things, just training people in general. We've noticed that a lot of people need a lot of repetition. They need a lot of practice to improve their dance. And that just has to do with the idea that they don't really understand the underlying fundamentals of it. And they don't understand how correcting, like underlying fundamentals, corrects everything. So we find that to be the biggest challenge. And this is why we want to talk about this whole idea of conventions. It's good, people who started working with the idea of convention or code, what was the good thing or interesting thing that they did is they really started to break down the dance and took it from like, okay, we have kind of these steps. They took it down one level to say, okay, we have these structures. We have a turn structure. We have a bolero timing structure. And so everything that they were talking about comes into classifications of movements. So what they did is they just classified the movements, but they didn't look underneath to see what is the fundamental component of the movement, or how you create the movement and how you communicate creating the movement. And that's sort of what we focus on in our dancing. And unfortunately, when you take it a level down, it's kind of like, I don't, this might sound really like, I don't know, like being conceited or something, but I don't mean it in that way. I just mean in terms of like scale. It's like going from like sort of Newtonian physics to going to quantum physics. The rules of the game change. They're no longer the same rules. So it's the same thing when you take a pen created in principles of movement, then you are in a world, in a paradigm that's governed by completely different rules. And sometimes for people, it's very hard to break one way of thinking about something intellectually and approach this thing that they've been doing sometimes for a very long time from a totally different perspective. So we really encourage everybody to, ask us questions or talk to us, or if you're curious about this stuff, because it's really fascinating and we love it and it's our life, and we'll do our best to try to explain the best that we can how we think about it, because I think that our perspective is pretty valuable and could help a lot of you guys.
Yes, and for the ones I know, I did an interview to all of you to explain the first time you came to our classes, and on the sense that for many of you it was kind of really how do you say, like open-minded, like on the sense that because it happens to us too when we had it, and an idea how you think that the world is, and then somebody else describe it in a really different way. It's kind of shocking in the beginning, but once that you understand that it's way simpler the way that we explain it, and not because we're making it simple. It's just because that's just how it is.
That's just the perspective, or that's the level from which we are considering the problem, we're approaching it. So, do you have something else that you want to talk about?
No, I just wanted to give them that idea, so then they start thinking about the idea that we just holding each other.
Yeah. So, yeah. Thank you guys for bearing with us. It's been a long video, but
yes.
It
was necessary. So we're gonna do, of course, more of these ones. We'll also
and we're looking for write us comments and the questions in the comments, and we'll be happy to answer them. We're home now for at least the foreseeable future.
Yeah, and many of you,
so we can communicate this way, or through Skype, or send us messages.
So again, thanks for watching. Also,
thanks for keeping an open mind.
Yes, and again, this is only to share. It's not to create any problem or create anything,
or
criticize anybody. So we're expecting the same from you guys. We just like, ¿cómo se dice? Positive críticas.
constructive.
Oh, that's what I meant. Yes. Which anyway, there is no. ¿Cómo se dice?
I don't know. Okay, everybody, have a good night. We'll have a good one too.
And stay home safe.
Bye.
Bye bye.